Hi again. I'd like to continue our discussion of React Native and the scroll view. And in the last video, we created a simple example here with a bunch of cells that scroll. Understand that this looks like a table view, but this is not the table view because the cells here are not getting recycled. So this would work great for a small number of cells. It would be a quick and easy way to create a simple table view with a little, or imitation table view with a little bit of data. If we had lots of cells, hundreds or thousands of them, then this would be a memory inefficient way to display them. So that the list view or table view gives us a more efficient way to display lots of data, and that's primarily what the difference in the table view is. But here, this would be good for a small number of items. So I got 20 cells. I don't think the computer should have a problem displaying 20 cells like this, right? But how can we improve on this now? So here's the code we used. And I have an array here, and I'm just making a view that we display, inside, that we're displaying down here in the scroll view, and we're just adding these JSX objects to the array, right? So this array gets kind of iterated through, and each one of these guys gets, added as a child here of scroll view kind of automatically. But what's inefficient about this is that we used the view, right? Because if we just put the view in here with all this stuff, then, essentially, if I want to put more things in here, like I want to add a title, I want to add like a subcomponent, then all that stuff gets crammed into this thing, right? And this gets pretty ugly and hard to read. Better for us to make a component out of each cell. So I could make each cell a component, and then that cell can be its own file here, and we can, like put all the code for that cell into one place where it's easier to manage, okay? So why don't we do that? Let's add a new file to our components folder here. I'll call it, let's call it timer cell. Maybe we'll put our timer in here, right? So I'll call it timercell.js, and we'll import React from React, right? And we'll just make this a simple component. We'll say import, we need the curly braces, we need to import view and style sheet. And, and you can import other things if you need it. Maybe we'll import the text here also. So we'll say text. Oops, I need an uppercase T there. And then we'll say React Native. And now we'll say const, and we'll call this timer cell. And this will be a simple component, so it'll just be a function that takes props, right? Okay, so why don't we do this first? Why don't we put, generate our code here, right? So we'll put a return statement there, and what we want to return is the code that we have here, right? So we can cut this out. I'll just cut that, and I'll put it here inside our cell, so we'll return this. Maybe we'll modify this later, right? We need a semicolon there, right? So we've got this thing, and then now we'll need to export this and import it to our other file. So let's say export default timer cell, okay? And then we'll need a style sheet, right? So we'll need the style sheet because this guy's expecting, styles.box, right? So why don't we go back to scroll view, and I'll just copy this whole style sheet here. Right, so I've got this on the clipboard, and then I can delete this little bit at the end for box because we won't be using that, right? Like box doesn't appear here anymore. Instead, box is going to appear inside of our timer cell, right? So there's box. I'll leave this container here because maybe we'll have a container here, and we want to style the container. And actually, in our case, like box is kind of the container now, right? And why don't we do this? Why don't we change that? Why don't we just get rid of this, and it'll say container, and then it'll be height 60, radius whatever, background color this. Let's change the color there just a little bit. I don't know why. So anyway, so we've got that, and we'll change this to container, right? Because that's kind of now the container, right? And so now we need to import the timer cell into scroll view or scroll example, right? So let's go back here, and what we're going to do is at the top of the page, so we're back here in scroll example.js, we'll say import timer cell from timer cell like this, and then what we'll do is we'll push a timer cell, and we'll need to have the closing thing here, right? So there's our timer cell, right? So hopefully if we've done everything correct, this should just look the same, right? So we'll refresh. Oh, I got a value. Oh, can't find variable I. Oh, I forgot. Yeah, because remember we're creating the cells here in the loop, and then our timer cell that we copied has the value I right here, right? No problem, right? Why don't we do this? Let's pass that in as a property to the cell. So if you recall the example on props, right, we can create a property on an object or add a property to the props variable by adding an attribute to the HTML JSX code, right, or HTML-like JSX code. So why don't we call this ID, and then we'll set it equal to I, okay? So this ID now becomes a property here on props. So the key value now will be props.id, right? Let's give it a try now here in the simulator. I'll refresh. Oh, and that looks like it did before, right? I'm getting this error here. It says warning. So for some reason it's not getting the right ID there. Let's go double check. So I got props ID, and I think it should be right. Oh, well, we'll ignore it for right now. But yeah, so hopefully we passed in a unique value there for ID, and then all of our cells will have this ID value, right? Actually, you know what? Come to think of it, actually we could just delete that there, and then up here so that was in timer cell, right? Like we could actually take off the key value there. I wasn't even thinking. And we could go here to the scroll example, and actually we could just set this to key. You know, that actually does the same thing, right? So we'll do this, right? We'll save this. Actually, I think that was different. Actually, this actually should be done this way. Sorry, ignore what I just said, right? Let's do it this way. So we'll save that, and then, yeah, that gets rid of our warning. So there we go, fine. So, so that looks pretty good, right? So what else can we do now? So now, you know, this code looks very clean and maintainable, right? We can, you know, just create a timer cell. We know it's a timer cell. We know we don't want to display an array of timer cells here. No problem, right? Now, if we want to edit the timer cell, we'll always go to the timer cell class, and we can do make any changes here. So if, for example, we wanted to display the ID number, hey, let's use that ID now, right? So maybe I'll do this. I'll say ID equals I, right? So I want to give each cell a number. Actually, I don't want them to start at 0. I want them to be 1, 2, 3, 4. So maybe I'll do ID plus 1, okay? So we'll pass in ID plus 1 or I plus 1 as the ID. And then when I switch to timer cell, I can maybe change this. I'll take out the slash there and put a closing view tag here. And inside here, we'll put a text item or a text object, right? And then inside the text object here, we'll print the number of the cell. So now remember the number's coming in as props.id, so we can say props.id here, right? So let's save that, and then we'll give it a quick test. And there we go. So there's cell 1, 2, 3, 4, right? So anyway, so that should get us started. I don't know quite why this guy's getting the square corner there. I probably need to format this with some styles, but anyway, you can, if you look carefully, you can see the number. Why don't we actually give that a style right here too, so we can follow the same procedure we did before. Styles, why don't we just call it ID, right? And then we'll add an ID property here. Right? And then we'll say, you know, font size is 24. Font weight is bold. There we go, right? Maybe it's a little weird. These numbers are so small. They'll be bigger, but they'll still be kind of stuck at the top. So we could use Flexbox to format them or, you know, position them. But also another way to position them might be with line height. Like this would work on the web with CSS. So if we set the line height to match the height of the box, then the text sits vertically in the center. So maybe we'll do this. We'll give that a try here. I'll say line height is, since the height of my box is 60, I'll set the line height here to 60, right? So let's save that. We've created a new style here called ID, and then we're going to take that style and apply it to the text. Okay, so we'll save that and refresh it. Oh, there we go. I don't know why it squares off the corner there. I don't know. Anyway, so that I hope that was helpful and showed you how you can kind of break out your cells for your scroll view or data that you have in the scroll view. You can break it out into its own component, and then you know, that'll simplify your code. Okay, so thanks for watching, and I hope your projects are going well.